Hey guys, it's Roast, back with another Realm video. Today I want to talk to you about all the different status effects in Realm of the Mad God. Did you know that there are 12 positive status effects and 23 negative ones? We're going to cover them in the following sections to keep it simple. Those that affect movement, vision, outgoing damage, incoming damage or defense, and regen. I'll also provide a ranking at the end for which are the most dangerous and need to be avoided at all costs. If this video helps you, make sure to subscribe for more good content and to help me reach my goal of 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. We can do it, but only with your help. My next video will either be an in-depth guide on the Forge system or the Dungeon Mark and Daily Quest system, so vote in the community poll I've got up on my channel and the comments below with which one you want to see first. With the intro out of the way, let's get started with the movement affecting status effects. In total, there are 5 movement status effects. They are Speedy, which gives you plus 50% movement speed. This is going to be granted by the Warrior Helm and the Snake Ring, among a few other things. Note, it is entirely cancelled out if you are affected by Slowed at the same time. And speaking of Slowed will reduce your speed stat to 0 to give you a speed of 4 tiles per second. And like I said, this will take priority and completely nullify any speedy effects that you're under. So watch out for those slow effects if you're on the ninja or any other classes that rely heavily on speedy. Confused swaps your controls. Specifically, it changes left to down and down to left, right to up and up to right, and your rotation directions will swap with one another. Paralyze renders its target completely immobile, but it's still able to attack, and in a similar fashion, Petrify makes it to where the target cannot move or attack, but it also takes 10% less damage. Next, let's talk about vision effects. There are a total of 6 of them. Invisible prevents enemies from targeting you with attacks, but be cautious because some enemies will still randomly attack if they sense you nearby. The most common source of invisible is going to be the rogue cloak. The next thing we have for vision effects is going to be blind. This is going to be when your screen gets heavily darkened. You don't actually lose anything, but it is a lot harder to pick out colors specifically. And if you're not really sure what blind looks like compared to darkness, beholders in the Godlands will be more than happy to show you what blind looks like. Darkness is very similar to blind in our next effect, but different in the fact that it limits your vision to a small circle around you, which makes dodging shots much more difficult because you can't actually see outside that little circle around your character. The next effect we have is Drunk, which blurs your screen a little bit and is most commonly inflicted in places like the wine cellar. Hallucinating and Hexed are most commonly inflicted in places like the Magic Woods and the Mad Labs, and Hallucinating specifically changes objects and enemy sprites, but not your own player, and Hex replaces the player sprite with a random pet sprite. Now these 2 effects, again, don't actually change any gameplay besides the sprites that are there, so don't worry about those doing anything else besides that. Next up, we're going to talk about outgoing damage status effects, and there are 10 of these, kind of. The caveat is that these are effects that go on you as opposed to effects you can put onto bosses, and we'll cover those in the next section. Berserk gives you plus 25% attack speed, and it's negated entirely by Dazed, just like the speedy-slow relationship we talked about earlier, and it's usually going to be given by the Warrior Helmet ability. On the flip side of that coin is Dazed. The way Dazed works is that it reduces your dexterity stat to 0 and completely negates any berserk effects you're under, which reduces your attack speed to 1.5 attacks per second, which really hurts if you're going from maxed out dexterity under berserk to that tiny low speed. The next status effect we've got that'll help you do damage is Damaging, which gives you plus 25% damage. This one is going to be negated by Weak, and it's most commonly given by Paladin Seals, although there are a couple other different sources as well. Speaking of Weak, the way it works is by reducing your player's attack stat to 0, which results in 50% weapon damage, and again, like I said, this will always negate Damaging, so try to avoid this if you're trying to get that DPS in there. The next stat we're going to talk about is Inspired. This is a positive effect. It gives you 1.25 times your current range, and it's going to be usually given by your Bard loots. There are also going to be a series of both positive and negative effects in stat increases and stat reductions. These are for HP, mana, attack, defense, speed, dexterity, vitality, and wisdom. For all 8 stats, these can be given by nil drops, and then certain armors and abilities and, various things will actually lower those as well. So those can boost your damage or lower it depending on which stat you get. But yeah, just watch out for those as well. The next status effect we have is Silence. Silence prevents you from using your ability, but luckily it doesn't drain your mana like Quiet does, and I'm going to talk about Quiet in the Regens section because it's more regen focused, I think. The next status effect we have is Stunned. When you are stunned, or when an enemy is stunned, you are completely unable to attack. So where Daze lowers your attack speed to 1.5 attacks per second, Stunned makes it to where you cannot attack at all. So if you were perma-stunned by a boss and you were out of mana or you didn't have an ability, you just wouldn't be able to do damage. So watch out for those chain stuns. And the last outgoing damage thing we'll talk about is Unstable. And this is where when you get hit with Unstable, your weapon shots gain random shot deviation, which lowers your accuracy and your total outgoing DPS. This also causes your aimed abilities to fire in random directions. So watch out for that, especially if you're on a class like a Kensei. If you're on a wizard and you right click and it goes the wrong direction, you're fine. If you're on a Kensei and you're unstable and you right click to dash somewhere and it dashes you the wrong way, that can be super, super dangerous. So if you're an unstable Kensei, don't right click. It's not worth it. Okay? So now that we've talked about outgoing damage, we can talk about incoming damage or defense affecting status effects. You can consider this outgoing damage if you're putting it onto a boss. However you want to think about it. But yeah, there are 7 of these in total. So the first one is Armored. Armored increases your defense stat by 50%. This is going to be given by a few rarer items like Helm of the Juggernaut. It is super useful for increasing your tankiness because, again, it increases your defense stat by 50%, and knights love to get the Helm of the Juggernaut and just be tanky as hell. But again, it's not invulnerable, but it does make you significantly stronger. The next couple stats we're going to go over are various forms of like invulnerability and immunity, and they are different status effects, and we'll talk about each of them separately, so just pay close attention. There is Immune, which is not damage resistance, it is status effect resistance. So Immune specifically will be shown by a little shield with some icon in the shield. The shield will have a blue outline and a black infill, and in that black infill there'll be like 2 yellow lines for Paralyze Immune, and that means they can't be afflicted by certain status effects. This is usually going to be on certain boss enemies. Players are very rarely immune to status effects, so players won't really have this, but boss enemies can have this. The next one we'll talk about are Invincible, which is something that I'm pretty sure only boss enemies can have, and it is where they're entirely immune to damage and status effects. Can take no damage or anything at all. Nothing. The next thing we have is Invulnerable, where you can't take damage from attacks, but you can take damage, you can take status effects, and you can take damage from things like lava or the environment. This is usually just going to be your bosses, but this will be also characters with items like the Marble Seal for Paladins, or the Kensei during their dashes. The Invulnerable picture is that blue shield that the Kensei gets during his dash. The next status effect we're going to talk about is the Armor Broken status effect. And this effect is super scary, especially for those melee classes that rely on their super high defense, as Armor Broken takes your defense and it lowers it to 0. The icon for this is that little golden star, and I know I haven't been announcing the status effect icons, but when I talk about them, I will try to pull up the icons. Not all of these have icons, but when they do have icons, I'll try and show them on screen for you boys, as long as showing a clip of what it looks like. But yeah, Armor Broken is super scary for melee classes, so if you're a melee class, watch out for this because you now have 0 defense. So if you are a knight with armored and you are crushing it, well, now you have no defense, so back up. The next one we got to talk about is Curse. Curse makes targets take 25% more damage. It's really good to keep this on boss via your abilities if you can, but it's generally not going to be too scary for players most of the time. And in a similar manner to Curse, Exposed reduces your defense by 20. And by itself, it's not too spooky, but it can occur with armor break. And without armor break, it just basically causes you to take 20 more damage per hit. So by itself, it isn't too bad, but combined with armor break, it can get really spooky because you're going to start taking huge hits all of a sudden. So watch out for that combo. By itself, it's not too bad unless you just start taking a whole lot of shots, because those 20s will add up real fast. So, yeah. Now that we've covered the defense affecting stats, let's cover the regen affecting statuses. There are going to be 6 of these guys in total. The first one is energized. It gives you 10 mana regen per second. The next one is healing, which gives you 20 HP regen per second. The third one we have for you is bleeding, which is basically the exact opposite of healing. It drains 20 HP per second. It also stops your vitality health regen, but only your vitality health regen. And another interesting note is if you're bleeding and you're at 1 HP, it actually won't kill you. It'll take you down to 1 HP, but the bleeding effect cannot kill players. Now, if you take any more damage when you're at 1 HP, that will absolutely kill you, but the bleeding status effect by itself will not kill you. The next effect we have is pet stasis. Now, this isn't technically a regen thing, but I say it is because most people run heal and magic heal on their pet as their first 2 abilities, so yeah. The way pet stasis work is it turns your pet into a chicken, making it unable to use all of its abilities. Now, most people, again, that's heal, magic heal, that can be electric, decoy, far shoot, short shoot, middle shoot, the Rising Fury, Savage, whatever it is, it can't do it anymore. So watch out for that until your pet's back to not a chicken. The 5th one we have, the last 2 we have are both pretty spooky, and that is Quiet and Sick. Quiet will completely drain your mana and stops all mana regen, including potions and pets and everything, until the status is gone. Likewise, Sick does the same thing, so stops all regen for HP, including potions and pets, from actually healing you until the status is gone. And the scary thing about both of these is, if I recall correctly, you can still use potions while you are affected by these. They just don't have an effect. So you have to make sure you're not sick or quieted when you use the potions, because they'll just get wasted, and then you don't have them when you need them and can actually use them. So watch out for that. And to wrap that up, the last special thing I have is a special effect that players can actually be effective with, which is stasis. And it only goes on enemies, and they can't be hit, they can't move, and they can't attack. Like I said, players cannot be stasis, and if you want to do this effect, it's usually going to be done by the Mystic with their ability. I can't remember what it's called exactly. But yeah, with all the statuses covered, let's move on to the danger rankings. These rankings, really, funnily enough, are going to depend on the fight, the boss, and your class, but in broadest general terms, dodging Paralyze, Petrify, and Confuse is your number one concern, as losing movement control of your character later on just means death or Force Nexus 100% of the time. The end of the... that's just it. The end. Period. Confuse can be bumped down the list a little ways if you've practiced the movement and can adjust the new controls quickly, but otherwise watch out, because if you're a noob and you're holding right to dodge an attack and you get hit by Confuse and you walk into the shotgun, poof, dead, it's over. Sorry, Chief. And it's rough. Right after those, dodging Sick is super important, because not being able to heal after taking hits is super bad. If it's a short Sick, like a 1 or 2 second, it's okay, but if it's a long Sick, like 5 to 10, you're really going to want to avoid it. On the flip side, if you are full HP, feel free to take a Sicken shot over a Confuse or an Armor Break, because those are a lot more likely to cause a lot of permanent or burst damage that you won't be able to heal up from. Yeah. So, and all of these are going to be unless you are playing a priest. Because if you are playing a priest, ignore everything I just said, except Paralyze, Petrify. Actually, no. Ignore everything I just said, especially if you have the Purifying Tome, and dodge quiets and silences at all costs. Because if you're the priest and you have the Purifying Tome, as long as you don't get quieted and silenced, you can just say, no, I don't want the status effect, and leave. I've done it before. It's amazing. It feels like a whole new game, and kind of like you're cheating. I love it. It's literally great. And going from that to the end of the class was pain. But yeah, so Priest Fury Tome, lovely. Anyways, I hope this video helps you guys out learning all the status effects, because I know I was super overwhelmed when I started playing Realm. Please do like and subscribe to help me grow the channel and get more of my content sent your way. And also remember, vote and comment on the community poll for which video I should make next. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I'll see you in the next video. But until then, keep it beefy, boys. Oh shit. I had a Nexus there. No shot, no shot, no shot. There were so many. There were so many of us in that corner, and there were so many shots.